Well, on that note, let's go down to the draft. Hello again, Reid, Duke, and Andrew Cuneo. We're covering Rich Hoaen's draft. And here our first pack is an interesting one right off the bat. No bomb rare. What cards catch your eye here, Andrew?
Well, I would say the True Heart Duelist is the strongest card. It looks like Rich has got the Naga Vitalist selected, which I think in an 8-man draft you wouldn't want to start out with the Naga Vitalist. It's just not that strong of a card. Rich might be planning to do a sort of strategy where, now he switched to the True Heart Duelist. I was going to say sometimes you draft a kind of a base green deck so that you can splash a lot of colors more easily, and that might be something Rich has in the back of his mind. But it looks like
I have known Rich to go out of his way for those sort of like green mid-range decks. They're easier to splash colors. The meaty green creatures go up a little bit in value when the decks are weaker. But I think I agree that True Heart Duelist is just enough better that's where I'd be headed.
This is really not a particularly strong pack, so I think that Rich is going to look to see what he receives.
It's also a tough pack in the sense that it's going to be hard for Rich to predict what Steve Rubin to his left will take out of the pack. I could see Steve taking. Well, what did Rich go with there? Did he take the True Heart Duelist?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
Yeah, he darted back and forth right before he made the pick, but
well, it's going to be a surprise to us, I guess. We'll be able to figure it out from the subsequent picks. So this pack's missing an uncommon, which is something you definitely want to look right away to try to identify what commonality has been taken out of the pack.
And what do you learn from that?
Oh, so Rich is taking the Naga Vitalist, we know. You can learn through sort of process of elimination what the person might have picked. You can't really conclude much from this particular pack because there's an uncommon missing, and there are black uncommons that are better than the Ruthless Sniper, so the person on Rich's right could have taken a black card. But the Sniper was the best card in that pack, so I agree with Rich's pick.
And what would you have expected Steve Rubin to be looking at from these two packs? Because it's really important, if you're Rich, to have an idea of what the player to your left is going to be drafting.
Honestly, the packs are so haven't had any standout cards that you really can expect Steve to take. It's going to be so much dictated by his first pick that if I was Rich, I wouldn't have a strong inclination, really. I mean, probably like the best card Steve saw was the True Heart Duelist, so maybe he's taken that, but you really can't say.
Okay. Well, I like Rich's position here, picking up a second Naga Vitalist. If he can get Painted Bluffs or any kind of mana fixing, he's going to be in a great position to snatch up any broken rare or removal spell that he wants and potentially have the option to splash it. So this is a pretty nice framework for the draft.
Yeah, and again, there's a rare and an uncommon have been taken out of this pack, so you can't really infer anything about what colors Hoaen has picked on the right. Whereas if the next pack has a Magma Spray in it and there's been a common taken out of it, you can infer that Hoaen is not drafting red, basically.
Looks like still no super strong signals, but I think Rich will be happy to pick up either Spring Mind or Evolving Wilds from this pack.
Yeah, I think Rich should pick the Evolving Wilds because it's a card that you want for your Naga Vitalist multicolored green deck, and you also kind of want to deny it from the other team because people are more likely to play 3 colors, and the more of the mana fixing you can control, the better off you are.
That makes a lot of sense.
Go a different direction with the Winged Shepherd, which does synergize with his Sniper.
Do you think he wants to go into white after passing True Heart Duelist?
I think he just wants to confuse us.
Yeah. he wound up taking Spring to Mind anyway.
Yeah.
Now, does Gift of Paradise go with this game plan enough that you would take it, even though it's pretty clearly not the strongest card from this pack?
Yeah. I'm not. So Rich has hovered over the Talkrop Elite. I think he may be doing this to signal to us what he thinks Steve is going to take. We'll see. No, he took. So there, the Elite was just the best card.
Well, he would be wrong in this case about what Steve's going to take.
So that doesn't really fit with the cards he's drafted thus far, but it was the best card by far. So it might have been a little bit of trying to prevent Steve from getting too good of a white deck, or maybe he's going to branch into white now, thinking Steve might be white. With the two Vitalists and the Spring, he really has a lot of flexibility about what colors he can go.
Wow. Will he take a third Vitalist? The only other card I could see taking is Thresher Lizard, but that neither goes with what he has himself nor really what he's passed.
Yeah, I think he's going to take the Vitalist. Kind of interestingly, that so far we haven't really seen any good red cards. The Thresher Lizard's the first one to really stand out, which this could have just been a deep red pack. I think Rich needs to be thinking that Hoaen may be in red. Although it's a little bit hard to, like, it could easily be the case that Yelger is in red. We also haven't seen many black cards, so...
Yelger really likes the Thresher Lizard, though. I don't know if he would let that one by.
Yeah.
Yelger's draft decks leading up to the Pro Tour probably averaged about, like, 3 1/4 Thresher Lizards. He had, like, 5 and 6 in plenty of his decks.
Yeah. So this is Rich's original pack. It has not gotten any better.
You know, I kind of like Open into Wonder as a card, and it can be a way to break through if you have a green-blue deck with some meaty creatures like Colossopede or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Rich doesn't really have those meaty creatures yet.
Yeah. I would be taking the Giant Spider, I think, here.
Yeah.
But it looks like Rich is... I think that he's viewing that as a hate draft, probably.
Yeah, his worry probably is not wanting to give Steve a really good focused white-red aggressive deck. He should take Sheltered Thicket here, I think.
Yeah, that even if he doesn't have any red cards in his deck at all, he'll play that just because a cycling green land is good enough. But it's going to make his Vitalists really effective if he wants to splash a red or even a potentially double red card. I think that's an easy pick for him.
Now you go turn 1 Bloodlust Inciter, turn 2 Naga Vitalist, add mana Bloodlust Inciter.
Yeah. I think he's going to be really happy to get the Greater Sandworm here.
Yeah, I think so too. He needed a big creature. I mean, he's got 4 mana accelerants and nothing bigger than a 2/2, so that's a bit of a missing piece. Boy, he's seen remarkably few black cards in this draft. If you're in Rich's position, do you feel like you'd have a hint of what Alex Hoaen is drafting?
I wouldn't be all that confident, to be honest. I think it's pretty clear Alex is either black or red, but I think there's a good chance that Yelger is also one or two of those colors.
Okay.
So I think Rich is going to be in sort of a hard spot when trying to think about how to hate draft in the next pack. I would take the Painted Bluffs here, but I think Rich is still... I think he probably thinks that he wants to be white. Because I think he thinks he's going to be cutting off Steve.
I don't mind the Winged Shepherd pick. I'm generally a big fan of those 1 mana cycling creatures, especially when you have mana acceleration to have a reasonable chance of casting them on like turn 5.
I hate that Cradle of the Accursed pick. I think if he left that in the pack, Steve might have taken it and played with it. Also, I don't like that he passed the Blazing Volley kind of late in that pack for a Zenith Seeker.
He clearly wasn't listening to your introduction today.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good open for Rich. Heaven Earth fits the bill of exactly what you just mentioned of sort of like being able to splash a double red card. It's a perfect splash because you can, of course, use the front half of it and then just have it waiting in your graveyard once you do assemble your double red.
Yeah, and then looking at he's definitely going to take that. Like you said, it's the perfect card for his deck. There's two strong white commons, and then there's also the Honored Crop Captain and the Neff Crop Entangler. So I think that Rich isn't going to be too unhappy passing this pack to Hoaen, at least, because the best cards are white, and Hoaen almost definitely is not white with how late we saw that Winged Shepherd, and the Top Crop Elite was a little bit late.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, Prowling Serpopard, just above average creature. That's a nice addition to his deck.
Yeah, and so this is one of the most important packs to look at to try to get a feel for what Steve is drafting, which he's taken an uncommon, and you can't read too much from it because there's no particularly strong commons. And while the rare is pretty good, there are green uncommons you might take over it. So we didn't really... We could have gotten a great clue to what Steve is drafting there, but the pack didn't really help us.
I would be surprised if Steve was drafting green. I mean, between passing the Serpopard and Rich pretty much just taking every good green card he saw in pack one, I think Steve is more likely to be... Yeah, probably white and red are the more likely colors, but anything other than green, I'd say.
Yeah, and here we can tell that he's almost definitely not green because this pack has all the uncommons and the rare still, and there's a Trial of Strength.
Rich will take that, right?
Well, he's not going to take Dispossess.
Rich is probably reading that. I wouldn't be surprised if he's never seen the card before, being, not a constructed player.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Not a constructed player recently, I should say.
Yeah. I'm not surprised Rich took the Trial of Strength, but honestly, that's a card that's kind of come down for me the more I played the format.
Me too. It was one of my favorite cards in the early days of Amonkhet Draft. I still like it a lot, but, you don't get... once you get to this point in the draft, you're not really expecting to get, like, multiple green cartouches. That would be really lucky from here, so... If you only get a 1 or like a 1.5 time shot from Trial of Strength, it's just okay.
Yeah.
Nothing exciting here, huh?
Well, I think that the Pyramid of the Pantheon is a card Rich could potentially play in his deck. It's really good if you're trying to do this multicolor, double color cards in a lot of colors thing. But in a team draft, it's just a card that there's a chance it wheels. I like him maybe trying to just hate a black card out of this pack.
I would take Wander in Death. Oh, he took Benefaction of Ronas?
Yeah, that's... I don't love that pick. It interestingly, it does synergize with the Heaven, Earth, and the Spring to Mind in that you can put the Aftermath cards in the graveyard.
Here he's probably looking at Bitterblade Warrior or Trueheart Twins.
Yes, I'd agree. I think the Warriors is certainly the better card if you're just trying to draft only your deck. You want to look at the Trueheart Twins because it's possible that you're taking that card right out of Hoaen's deck.
Also, having Heaven Earth incentivizes him to choose red as a second color. But... certainly reasonable to just take the on-color green card.
Sort of no matter, he's going to be a base green deck, and he's going to be able to cast Heaven Earth almost no matter what he picks. Given that he's got the Gift of Paradise and the Sheltered Thicket already, his deck's going to be able to cast the Earth. I mean, he's going to build it so it's able to do that.
So he did put that Ruthless Sniper right in the sideboard. He doesn't seem to be too interested in black. If he was, I think he would have picked Wander in Death. Yeah,
I thought he maybe should have taken the Wander in Death just more as a hate draft than anything, because his deck, like, he might play the Benefaction of Ronas. It's certainly not an important card for his deck.
I guess Quarry Hauler is the pick here, although I had Soulscar Mage plus Heaven Earth one time, and that was pretty sweet. But I would not take it here.
Yeah, I would definitely take the Quarry Hauler. This is his first good 4-drop to ramp into with the Vitalists. He can maybe play the Takrop Elite, but that's probably not going to be a reliable thing to play on turn 3 because he's not going to have enough white mana. But the Quarry Hauler, if he draws that in a Naga Vitalist, it's going to come out on turn 3. It's going to be a good creature. So this was the pack that had the Compulsory Rest and the Fanbearer in it, both of which have been taken.
Nefcrop Entangler as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I like this Painted Bluffs pick here.
Yeah, Rich definitely wants to get at least one of those before the draft ends.
Yeah, and he doesn't really need to worry about hating the white-red card because I don't think there's any way Hoaen is playing white right now. The Manticore, on the other hand, that's a good potential hate draft from Hoaen's deck. I could easily see Hoaen being red. And also Rich, I mean, Rich could be playing enough red that he wants to put the Manticore in his deck.
Nice Sandworm as another pickup here. So what's your rough map of the table here? Do you feel like you know what Hoaen and Steve, and maybe to a lesser extent Yelger and Mike, might be interested in?
Not with a ton of confidence. It's really hard when the packs Rich has seen have mostly been weak. It's much easier to figure out what colors people around you are when they pass you strong cards, and you're able to conclude, well,
right. When you see a card where it's like they would not have passed this if they were interested in that color, but we haven't seen too many of those.
If I had to guess, I would say Steve is a white deck, like maybe white-black. Hoaen is he's definitely either red or black. He could easily be blue. We have not seen any blue cards of note the entire draft.
That's true.
So it's hard to say whether on Rich's left, Steve could be blue or maybe Atron is blue. We don't have any way to judge that. But Hoaen could be like a blue-black or a blue-red deck. He could also potentially just be a red-black deck. It's really hard to say with any confidence when you don't see any good cards passed.
Yeah, I think it would fit if Alex was blue with either red or black, and then potentially Yelger was the other of those missing colors. Like,
yeah,
maybe Hoaen blue-black and Yelger red something. But all these things, it's, you can amass clues from the draft and, put together these like possible projections, but you never know with 100% certainty. I have a particularly hard time trying to guess what my teammates 2 away from me are going to do. I feel like there's a lot more uncertainty in that than just guessing what your enemies on either side of you are drafting.
Yeah, although one of the things so you always team draft with Hoaen and Huey. I think it's actually a pretty big advantage in team draft to have teammates who know how they draft really well. Because you can pick up clues from cards that are left in the packs later. This is a pretty easy pick for Rich. It's, Magma Spray is the best common, and it's going to go right in his deck. While he's passing some other good cards with the Fanbearer and Final Reward, Lord of the Accursed, Cryptic Serpent, none of them are as good as Magma Spray to begin with. And, Steve's going to get a good card, but Atron will get a good card too. So that pack works out fine for Rich's team.
Rich has moved the white cards to the sideboard, so seems like he's just looking at being a red-green deck, potentially with a splash if he picks up a really strong card. Maybe he'll play some amount of blue mana to cast the Mind side of Spring to Mind, but he's looking at red-green.
Yeah, I think even if I was him, I would just have the Painted Bluffs in my deck, even if I don't play any islands, because it's going to allow him to potentially cast Mind with a Naga Vitalist.
Yep.
Although if he's straight red-green, he may not even want the Spring to Mind in his deck, in which case you obviously would disregard what I just said. But
oh wow, Trial of Zeal is a nice pickup for him. He doesn't have any cartouches yet, but I mean, 3 mana for 3 damage, that's just a good removal spell in its own right. And now having 2 trials, he can go a little bit farther out of his way to pick up a cartouche.
Yeah, and so interestingly, this is Hoaen picked a rare out of this pack. I'd be surprised if Hoaen is red. I mean, there are red rares that are better than Trial of Zeal, but there aren't very many. I mean, like Hoaen could have opened Glorybringer or Hazaret or the Red or Heart Piercer Manticore.
I wonder if you're Rich, if you're actually disappointed to see that pack, because you're like, wow, if I'm getting this card, my opponent must have gotten something even better.
Yeah. I think it's also Alex is really probably going to be looking to hate draft any cartouches. Like, I don't think there's any way Rich is getting a late cartouche if Hoaen can prevent it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Rich could play one in any color. Like, if he used to get a blue one, that could easily make his deck. He's not going to splash a white one, but we'll see. Champion of Ronos, very strong with two Greater Sandworms in his deck.
Yeah.
By the way, after the draft finishes, we're going to get to take a look at both Rich's deck building and Alexander Hoaen's deck building. That's going to be Rich's first opponent.
So what I was saying earlier, the knowing what your teammate, like knowing your teammates' sort of fine-tuned preferences for the draft format does help you a lot in these drafts. And if you look at the teams that have done well at the pro level.
Ooh, there's a cartouche. That is a big pickup for Rich right here.
Yeah, I think he's pretty clearly going to take the green cartouche, and there are a lot of strong black uncommons in this pack. So
maybe we were wrong about Alex's colors.
I'm going to revise my estimate of what Alex got out of this pack. I think he opened a very strong red rare, would be my guess. So Glorybringer, Hazaret, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to that point I was making, I know that Rich, Mike, and Yugger haven't gotten to draft that much, so they probably don't have that same level of intuition about what each other likes to draft, which is a bit of a disadvantage for them.
Well, red, green, gold, uncommon. Kenra Charioteer just looks perfect here.
Yeah. Rich could have maybe tried to get fancy to see if that card wheels, because he's probably the only red-green drafter at the table, but there wasn't any payoff to doing that. The other cards in the pack weren't of any particular interest to him or his opponents.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to risk it. So, unless he specifically thinks Steve Rubin is blue, I think he should just be taking Stinging Shot here.
Yeah, I would take Stinging Shot almost no matter what. I mean, even if Steve Rubin is blue, you're getting a card that's potentially really good against his deck, and you're going to play against him. The draft goes all 3 rounds. Rich was definitely reading Hazaret's favor there. I don't think he knew what that one did. I played that one in draft once. It was really bad. Which, if you read the card, that's what you should expect from it.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of an unusual green-red deck Rich has wound up with. It's not nearly as aggressive as they often are.
It's a little bit awkward in the sense that he has 3 Naga Vitalists, but not a really robust, like 4 and 5 drop section of his mana curve.
Yeah, he's definitely, he's probably going to want to get at least one more creature, and he would like even more. Because he'd like to be able to cut Benefaction of Ronos from his deck and Gifts of Paradise potentially.
I'm not so sure about the Benefaction. He now has 2 trials and a cartouche, as well as Gift of Paradise, and as you mentioned, dumping the Aftermath cards in the graveyard has some value.
Yeah, that certainly in 8-man drafts, your opponent's decks are usually too fast to do that. He might want to build his deck that way, though, if he talks to his teammates and they think that the Dem Boys team has drafted slower decks. Wow, he's going to hate draft there. I would have thought he might have wanted to just take a creature.
Yeah, I think the Defiant Great Maw would have been a good addition to his deck.
I think he almost definitely just took a card out of Steve's deck, but he's going to be... He's got 23 cards in his deck right now, and 2 of them are lands, so he really wants to get some more, like, 2 more cards he can play.
I'd like to see him cut some of the lower impact non-creatures, or just, like, Bloodlust Inciter is not a card you want when you have 24, 25 mana sources in your deck.
He may have been
not 24, 25, but 21, 22.
He definitely just wheeled a good selection of cards. He seems to be higher on the Benefaction of Ronas than I am, for sure, because he took a second one and put it straight into his pile of cards he's playing with.
Yeah, I would likely play 1 in this deck. I agree with you that a lot of games when things aren't going well, you're not going to have the time to really use it, but I think it's a strong card. It's something to do with his extra mana, as he does have a lot of early accelerants and not that many payoff cards.
Yeah. If I was Rich, I'd definitely be trying to work with my teammates to figure out what colors the other team is, and if 2 of them are slower black decks, like maybe a blue-black cycling deck, or maybe a black. They think that Hoaen has a black-red deck with a lot of removal. Benefaction of Ronas is going to be a good card there. If it turns out that they decide, if it turns out Siggy's like an aggressive white-red deck, and they think Hoaen is an aggressive red-black deck, I don't think you want to play Benefaction of Ronas, or certainly not 2. Cascading Cataracts is potentially really interesting with the Naga Vitalists, but he just didn't wind up with the kind of deck that can take advantage of that.
Right. It's good for splashing double off-color spells. Like, since he has 3 Naga Vitalists, even one source of blue mana should be enough to cast the Mind side of Spring Mind. But, Cascading Cataracts, if you were to get Cruel Reality or Angel Sanctions, yeah, any double off-color, really powerful rare, you could use that. What did you think of that draft? It seemed to me like Rich ended up with a pretty above-average deck. He's probably happy.
I'm not sure. I don't think the packs he opened weren't particularly strong. Like he got the Heaven Earth in the second pack, which slotted into his deck really nicely. But he didn't really get any cards in the first pack that really set the direction for his draft all that strongly. He sort of took the Naga Vitalists and then tried to, slot into a deck somehow that was going to use them. And he got the Heaven and Earth as a payoff, and kind of the Greater Sandworms are payoffs. But he didn't really see a ton of stuff for his deck. So I think he could feel good in that he didn't have to pass any cards where you were like, wow, this is going to be really unfortunate that I have to pass this in a team draft. Because he just didn't. He was set up to take anything like that he saw, but he just didn't see very much of it.
Right. It definitely seemed that Rich went out of his way to be able to splash a powerful card if he saw one, and then didn't really see one. But he's got some good things going for him. He's got good creature base. I thought for a moment he had 2 Magma Sprays, but it's only 1 Magma Spray. But the 2 Trials in the Cartouche, that's a nice package. Champion of Ronas with Greater Sandworm can earn some free wins. And generally, it's just a nice functional deck, which you're not guaranteed to have one of those in a team draft, especially if your teammates are actively taking cards away from you. I'm sorry, if your opponents are taking cards away from you.
I'd like to see him get the Hyena pack in his deck. I think that with the 3 Naga Vitalists, having another reasonable 4-drop to play makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think that he needs to... the Haze of Pollen's an interesting card in this team draft format. He should be asking his teammates if they passed Trial of Solidarity. I think there was maybe one in a catcher's name that we saw. I wasn't keeping too close of an eye on those. But if they think that somebody wound up with a zombie deck with 2 or 3 Anaketra's names. Maybe they're going to want to. Maybe he should be playing that Haze of Pollen. There was definitely at least one Pursuit of Glory. So he needs
Limits
to
of Solidarity would be another card to think about for that. I sideboard in Haze of Pollen quite a lot. I think you made some good points there.
I'm surprised you don't just play it all the time.
Well, let's take a look at his opponent's deck, Alexander Hoaen.
All right,
We
so
did not get to watch his draft, but what's your
I'm
prediction?
going to call blue-black. I'm completely wrong. Wow.
Wow. Well, he has some really good cards in this deck. The Regal Caracal is potentially what he took over Trial of Zeal in Pack 3. In fact, almost certainly that's the case. Yeah, this is an okay deck. He's got a little too much nonsense for my taste. A little too many of the non-creature, non-removal spells.
Yeah,
but
so he definitely got that Regal Caracal Pack 3 pick 1. As we know, he took a rare, and he would have taken Trial of Zeal over Oracle's Vault or the Soulscar Mage for sure. So that was that pick. I thought when Rich passed that Honored Crop Captain late in Pack 2 to Hoaen, there was really no danger that it was a card Hoaen could use, but Hoaen is just playing it. Although if you look at the cards he's got, it seems like he may have just taken that, like he was base red deck, and he just took it thinking, well, I don't really have a second color, maybe I can be white, and then he opened the Regal Caracal.
Yeah, I think he may have been going for potentially red-green, and he took a Fanbearer and a Crop Captain in Pack 2, and then opened a white rare that there's no way he was going to pass to Rich, so it just everything sort of fell into place for him to be white-red. But if you note, he doesn't really have like a deep pool of white cards that indicates that he'd been taking white cards throughout the whole draft. And in Pack 1, that was definitely what we were saying, white coming late in the pack. We thought Hoaen was going to be some combination of the Grixis colors. I think he was he was at least red the whole draft.
He's got the 2 Bantu's monuments. Do you think he was picking those highly?
I hope not. So, yeah, he's got 25 cards laid out here. He doesn't want to cut any creatures. Well,
he's cutting a creature. It's an incredibly bad creature in his deck, but he's cut it.
But he's got some bad, like the second fling, the Inoketra's Name. These are pretty miserable cards. So he's got some high highs in this deck, but he didn't really cross the finish line in terms of number of cards I'd be happy to put in my deck.
I'm pretty excited about the second fling compared to that Anointer Priest. That
Yep.
1/3 with a really marginal ability is not what I want. I mean, I guess he has the Regal Caracal, so you can gain a little bit of extra life.
Well, the only other cards he's got in his sideboard are Blazing Volley, which I will note goes up in value when you have Soulscar Mage, and Violent Impact, which maybe if one of his opponents has a 3-color deck, or if he can destroy an artifact once in a while, just having the cycler is not so bad.
Yeah, and he's going to want to... I was going to ask you, is there a reason that people in the Team Draft Super League are putting all these lands in their sideboards? If you look at the deck list, everybody's already got a ton of lands in their sideboards.
Yeah, the reason they do it is this is not a self-contained event. We do the draft, we save our decks, and then we challenge each other to matches.
So you can control the pairings. That makes sense.
Yeah, so you just want to put the lands in your sideboard before you save your deck in case you need them.
If I was Alex, I would definitely be asking my teammates if there was a reason they thought I should have Blazing Volley in my deck or Violent Impact, because there are some cards that he could really do without that he's got in this stack of cards. And if Violent Impact or Blazing Volley is the kind of card that could win a game, you want them in your main deck.
I agree. Well, we're going to see Alex Hoaen taking on Rich Hoaen. I'm going to pick Rich in this matchup. I think in the absence of Oracle's Vault and Regal Caracal, Alex's deck just doesn't really have the punch he's going to need. So he'll be leaning pretty heavily on his 2 rares.
Also, I think any game where Rich draws Heaven Earth, Alex is really going to have a hard time fighting through that.
Yep, that's true.
Interestingly, Alex does have the Deem Worthy, so he can kill the Greater Sandworms, which is not always easy out of a red-white deck.
Yeah, he doesn't have any compulsory rests, but Deem Worthy is going to be a good answer.
He's also got, he could fling 2 creatures at a Sandworm.
It's a tough way to do it, but okay.
Like, if he has his Top Crop Elite and Unwavering Initiate, he could attack and exert, and then post-combat fling them both at the Sandworm.
Another thing about Alex's deck is he's going to be looking to steal games with Onward to Victory plus Fling in the same turn, setting up, big combat steps where an unlocked creature can deal like 12 damage or something like that.
I really hate that Onward to Victory card. I refuse to put that in my deck.
I play it. It's okay. I think it's not what you want your uncommon, on-color gold card to be, but I think it's about on par with whatever other combat tricks you'd be playing, Mighty Leap or whatever it might be.
I think this is just an instance of me having higher standards than you.
So you're saying that you believe? Are you saying that you think Onward to Victory is worse than Mighty Leap and Brute Strength, or you just hope to not play any of those cards? Really?
I think it's definitely worse than those. The fact that it never increases power, so it never helps you win a
toughness,
even combat. Like it's almost exclusively a card you use to kind of cheese out your opponent and try to do 10 damage in a turn. And
yeah, but that's great.
Well, that's kind of what Alex wants in his deck. So I can see why he's playing it, but it wouldn't be I would not have picked it probably in the draft.
So if we saw very few blue and black cards from Rich's position, do you think Yelger must have been drafting some kind of control deck with one or both of those colors?
Maybe. I mean, I know that Yelger really hated blue in this matchup.
It, yeah.
So, but he drafted it in the first draft of the Pro Tour and went 3-0. So maybe he's expanded his horizons a little bit. It'll be interesting to see who's got the blue cards in this draft. Because we saw absolutely none of them, but there was that Cryptic Serpent in pack 3 in Rich's pack that did not wheel, I don't think. So somebody took it and is presumably playing with it.
Yeah. So, blue is pretty weak. It's possible that the packs it's possible that blue rares weren't opened and nobody was really able to put anything impressive together. I think we saw 1 or 2 blue cartouches, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's only 1 blue drafter at the table. All right, well, that's it for the draft portion of tonight's Team Draft Super League. We're going to cut to advertisements, and when we come back, we'll have round number 1, and we'll be watching Rich Hoaen against Alexander Hoaen.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Looking for a challenge? Magic Online offers monthly limited and constructed events, which lead to the yearly Magic Online Championship. Download Magic Online at mtgo.com and start earning the points you need to enter. Check out Amonkhet Booster Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Draft anytime, play anytime. Available now. For more info, visit mtgo.com.
Represent your country at the World Magic Cup at national events. This September, you can compete against your country's best players for the title of national champion. You need Planeswalker points to participate, so keep playing in local events to qualify. Learn about qualifying for nationals at magic.wizards.com/national.